Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. You look good. Taking care of yourself? Looks like you're chanting. That's great. Good job. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for being here as we continue our review of the Mahayana Sutra, the MahaPariNirvana Sutra. Before we start this 8th chapter, I just want to once again remind you that this sutra is actually all sutras are a compendium, if you will, a collection of various stories, lectures, sermons, if you will, on a particular teaching. And overall, the teaching being the umbrella term for a period of time where a step has been taken to evolve the understanding, the capacity, the depth of meaning, of practice, and what is Buddha. What is Buddhism is the pursuit of Buddha. So what is that? What does that look like? And how does the mind, the samsaric mind, work as an obstacle or an ally in the pursuit of that goal? That's a summation of all the teachings of Buddhism, okay? And in this teaching, this sutra, this collection, I think it's safe to say you will probably find no more varied and multifaceted, multitudinous missions of each chapter or each group of chapters to elicit and to provide that goal of evolving capacity. That is to say that this sutra, and the reason I'm doing these lectures on it, is that in its wide-ranging effort to reach various minds of the monks, the students, who are in very different stages of understanding, is unusual. It doesn't sit with the other sutras, which are really kind of focused. Many sutras, like the Agama Sutras, you could say, are very much focused at the Shravaka and below level of monk, just studiously trying to understand the way their mind works and the obstacles they are to overcome, right? And later on, with more of the Mahayana, even the pre-Mahayana, it depends on how you divide this up. But for instance, let's just take the group of teachings commonly known as the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Well, those are for people of realization. And the reason they're qualified that way is because monks at that stage are more focused on engaging directly with their mind in order to overcome the samsaric obstacles which they learned as Shravaka, but now, more to the point, how to materialize or instantiate the results of the knowledge of overcoming And this is why it's realization, because this is what brings you about one's experience of Buddha. And then, of course, in the Mahayana, throughout the Mahayana, one learns how to integrate that Buddha. Not just to get to the experience, but now what do I do? And the lotus, being the crown jewel of Mahayana, is okay. This is how it works to get there, to instantiate Buddha, to influence samsara, shut it down, and be, how do you be engaged in Buddha in this very lifetime? And that is what I have coined the Lotus Bodhisattva. That Bodhisattva is different in cause, in being, in influence than the Bodhisattva of any previous teachings. And case in point, and the reason I bring this up, is because in this sutra, the MahaPariNirvana, there are times when, as in this chapter, he will, Shakyamuni will talk about 4 classes of monk that are accomplished, but not all the way there. And so we're reminded in this chapter, or by this chapter, not literally, but by its existence, that this MahaPariNirvana had to come after the 8 years of teaching of the Lotus, was a collection of dialogues and stories given by Shakyamuni as he prepared for parinirvana, for his own death. And some record this as around a 3-month period, which seems acknowledgeable, seems possible. And so he was speaking to monks that came from all over, trying to resolve their final doubts. Remember, we've read about that in the first chapters of this sutra. That monks came from all over, students of his came from all over. And I would contend that it's rather obvious that the reason they're there and still have doubts is because after 8 years of hearing the Lotus Sutra, or maybe they weren't around while he was lecturing and the Lotus Sutra got to them third hand or fourth hand, whatever the reason, they were not settled. The Lotus Sutra did not click in them the additional capacity to understand that they needed in order to pursue their practice. And so they're here at this last moment trying to get that advice. And ipso facto, Shakyamuni is in some chapters speaking to Shravakas, others Pratyekabuddhas, others even Arhats, who at one point, all of these, believed that having reached a point of unattachment was enlightenment. They were done, or not done, but had accomplished what needed to be accomplished in the practice. Arhats, most of all, thinking that this is the last body I need to inhabit, which is a fallacy in itself, because that still hangs on. In order to think that, you have to hang on to this Hindu mythology about reincarnation, which is not Buddhist at all. So you can tell just by that fact alone that all those previous sutras and those previous beliefs of those different levels of monks were still tinged with poison, sickness, illness, delusion. Oh, I'm so good that I finally reached my last body. This is your first and last period. The body is your vehicle to have this sentient mind. How could you begrudge that? And as soon as it's gone, your mind's gone, there's no more you. Stop thinking about this. This is wrong thinking. This is still delusion. You haven't gone all the way. And if you need clarity of that, I spoke about it in the introduction. The apparition of the jeweled city, or whatever it's called, that third story in the Lotus Sutra. The what is it called? The chapter, the Phantom City, or the anyway, that is a long-winded explanation of a fake, a counterfeit, a semblance goal that Shakyamuni felt he had to give his students at the time, who were starting to have not only doubt, but fear that these teachings, they could never master these teachings enough to accomplish the goal of the teachings. So he gave them the provisional goal that, having reached that point where we weren't materialistic anymore, was entrance into Buddha-ness. And it was an experience of Buddha, but it wasn't the full teaching. That is not the full understanding of Buddha. Because the full understanding of Buddha would necessitate that you no longer have this delusion that you have multiple lifetimes and forever to do this, number one. And number two, that you would have to, even in all those multiple lifetimes, or in your last one, even having reached Arhat, that you would have to wait to encounter, now where is this encounter supposed to happen? An actual Buddha, which again is a delusion, because we are all actual Buddhas. It's a consciousness. But in this mythology, you have to reach a Buddha who will then bequeath upon you Buddha-ness. Total, that's just childish, infantile attachment, right? So how could that possibly be enlightenment? But they needed that, according to Shakyamuni at the time, because if not that, they would have just quit altogether. And we can't have that. But in the Lotus Sutra, he goes, a great deal of the Lotus Sutra is spent re-educating these people, right? And demonstrating what a lotus bodhisattva looks like. Not a semblance bodhisattva, not a counterfeit bodhisattva, but an actual Mahayana lotus bodhisattva, which is somebody who's attained Buddhahood, but still in this life with the opportunity to influence others to do just that. That's enormous, a huge step from where these monks were previously. So it's entirely possible that somewhere, even within the ranks of those who were listening to lectures directly from Shakyamuni, there were those who still weren't confident enough to get it, to really understand the meaning of that. It's profound. And as Shakyamuni described himself and subsequent great teachers, among them Nagarjuna, Tendai, certainly Nichiren, point out that in some future 500-year increment, that people will have evolved, the mind will have evolved enough so that this becomes obvious. It just makes sense. That this teaching, the Lotus Sutra, would seem Well, of course, duh, because the capacity would be innate. The counterpoint to that is that we live in a time of rampant delusion, distraction, stupidity, and greed, anger. Look at all the wars. They're constant. They're constantly going on. One ends, another starts. Do they ever end? Politics, petty grievances. It's just everywhere around us. It's sometimes, I tell you, I will sit sometimes if I watch too many reports on television of what's going on in the world. If I could take some kind of medication to just puke it all out, I would. Of course, that wouldn't resolve anything. So I chant. And I try to provide as much material and this resource to help all of us have a firm handle and feel confident. Yes, this isn't the end of the world. This is an ugly spot. This is a massive pimple that must be burst, right? Sorry for the visual on that. But have confidence that our practice will, like an antibiotic, at some point, will overwhelm that very loud, very rude, very instantly reacting violence everywhere in the world. You must have confidence in that. Even if it's just from the microcosm of one's own life. You can see the political events of the world in your group, where you work, where you practice, where you live, your neighborhood. You can see that certain aspects are really at war. There may not be great weapons of mass destructions involved, but when we think about the mind, mass destruction, the violence in the mind, yeah, it's just as palpable. So, all of that, I digress a bit, but I guess I needed to say those things. Chapter 8 on the Four Dependable Ones. And I have a short note to begin this chapter. This reference goes back to the semblance or counterfeit Dharma teachings, which were an expedient device to encourage the monks of the time to stay committed in their practice. Right? Today, this categorization of the monks is still practiced in Theravada and some other groups, even though it has long been dismissed by Shakyamuni in the Mahayana, and specifically in the Lotus Sutra teachings, as I just discussed. Why it appears again in this sutra is more evidence of Shakyamuni doing his best to include the monks of the semblance teaching in the progression to the complete and perfect Dharma of the Lotus. And now you understand that this is the function of the MahaPariNirvana Sutra, to unblock the path to the Lotus Bodhisattva practice. These four stages the four stages in this chapter are the Sotapanna, which you may have heard as the stream enterer, right? What's a stream enterer? What's a stream? Well, we actually talk about it all the time. I certainly do, right? It's the momentum. Nothing in the universe is static. This cosmos is constantly moving, but not just moving as things in inertia. Yes, there's that. But understand, as a Buddhist, that all those things in inertia are constantly fluctuating and moving and influenced and never the same, never static, moment to moment to moment to moment. So there's that momentum. And that's the way I want you to understand momentum. Momentum is moment to moment to moment to moment. And yes, we can perceive it as motion, right? Trajectory, but never lose sight of the fact that each moment it's a flux. It's developing, what's the word I'm looking for? Disassembling, right? Everything presents itself, expresses itself, and then that expression, whereas it abides over time, but it's constantly changing and degrading until it starts to fall apart completely and then dissolves and is no more. That's a lifetime, okay? As it is for anything, the lifetime of an atom, the lifetime of a human, the lifetime of a rock. The Sakadagami, the once returner, and again, this is the semblance dharma. So remember, once returner, Shakyamuni is trying to restrict this to the understanding of the mind. The Anagami, the non-returner, let's put this in terms of nirvana. So the stream enterer enters the knowledge of release from nirvana. It's a theoretic, right, for Shravaka. The once returner is someone who has grasped the teachings well, but is still has enough attachments that he'll falter into what's the matter with you? I can't say it. The word's in my head and I can't say it. The regular mind, the mind of samsara. Thank you. The non-returner, somebody who's achieved liberation from material. And the arahant, the conqueror, who no longer has to worry about slipping into samsara, has firmly grasped liberation. And you would think that's the end goal. You've gotten it. You've made it. But not fully, not really. And this is why I bring up the counterfeit or semblance dharma. This was the apparition of the city, right? That jeweled city, that treasured place, as though that was the goal. But that was a temporary goal given by Shakyamuni earlier on when people were struggling to stay in their practice. And then in the Lotus, he completely trashes that and says, stop. By now, in other words, Shakyamuni would have thought, by now, I thought you would have advanced enough to get rid of that crutch. But now I see I have to pull it out from underneath you so you can walk upright. Do you see what I'm saying? So, the oldest Buddhist texts portray Shakyamuni Buddha as referring to people who are at one of these four stages as noble people, the Araya Pugala. These monks who have reached this stage are noble. They have really grasped the nature of their practice, And the community of such persons as the noble Sangha. Makes sense. But then in the Lotus Sutra, he was telling the noble Sangha, you haven't reached what you think you have reached. Remember that statement? Those are the monks who think they have achieved what they have not truly achieved. They have more to learn. They have to go the rest of the distance. All right, so let's get into the chapter proper, shall we? Shakyamuni Buddha further said to Kashyapa, still in dialogue with Bodhisattva Kashyapa, O good man, in this all-wonderful Mahayana Sutra, there appear 4 kinds of men. So he's basically telling you, you're going to have different capacities I'm going to talk about in this sutra. Not all of them will have reached the knowledge of the Lotus Sutra and the meaning of it, perceived the meaning of it. These well protect, established, and think of wonderful Dharma, wonderful expedient devices. They benefit others very much and have compassion for the world. They've accomplished a great deal. They become the refuges of the world and give quietude and bliss to man to realize cosmic Tathagata-ness, or the Tathagata field potential, the Bodhisattva and Buddhahood of the Lotus Sutra. What are these 4 categories? So they help lead people eventually to the practice described, outlined in the Lotus Sutra. And they themselves are being lectured to here in this sutra, right? A man appears in the world and possesses illusion. That's just the starting point, yeah? This is the first category. Those persons of the grades of Srotapana, and Sakridagamin are the second. Those of the grade of Anagamin are the third, and those of the stage of Enlightened One are the fourth. Such 4 kinds of persons appear, benefit, and have compassion for the world. They become the refuges of the world and give quietude and bliss to man and the Pure Land. So they are the functionaries of Buddhist teachings. They are the ones who walk the cities, walk for alms, for support from the people, engage the township, teach them the teachings, the stories of Buddhism, to raise their minds toward Buddha. Number 1, a man appears in the world and possesses illusion. What do we mean by those garbed in illusion? Such people uphold the prohibitions, observe moral comportment, and uphold wonderful Dharma. So he's not just talking about the regular population here. In his first category of Srotapana, the man who appears in the world possessing illusions, he's talking about dedicated students of Buddhism. He's talking about that first motivation of monks that join, practice, and seek to learn comportment, prohibitions, uphold the wonderful Dharma, the teachings. So these include all beginners, all in the stage of learning. They're all, even the most accomplished, in a very broad category of learning. They accord with what Shakyamuni Buddha says, understand what is said and expounded to others, and say, quote, coveting little is the way, desiring much is not the way. And they expound the 8 awakened minds of a great man. To one who transgresses, the way is shown, so that he makes effort to change. These people make away with errors and know the expedients and secrets of the teachings of the Bodhisattvas. Right? This is propagation at its most democratic and influential form, right? Just regular people studying Buddhism, talking about it amongst themselves, propagating its resource and its practice toward Buddhism, toward Bodhisattvaism. Such of this category is a common mortal, not the eighth person, one who has arrived at the stage of an attainment called the eighth person stage. The eighth person is no common mortal. He is called a bodhisattva, but not a Buddha. The divisions, don't let them confuse you, but in just a straightforward reading, they make sense, don't they? If not, please let me know what isn't clear here in the comments, or email me directly. All right? The second are those of the stages of Sotapanna and Sakridagamin. Having encountered wonderful Dharma, having tasted Buddhahood, they uphold it. They follow and listen to the words of Shakyamuni Buddha and act as they have heard, having heard, right? And so I have heard. Having heard, they write down what they have heard, uphold what they have heard, recite it, and expound the teachings to others. Now, this is interesting because during Shakyamuni's lifetime, this was an oral teaching. So is he reaching into the future here a little bit? Or is he talking about the practice of the monks reciting and memorizing, and maybe they did take notes? This is not quite clear, is it? But here he says, or whoever translated this says, that they write it down. And we're told in the Lotus Sutra that that is one of the great practices of this Buddhism, these teachings. Copy, write, disseminate. Yeah? So, they must have been told to take notes to help them memorize. What we do know is that Shakyamuni Buddha did not work from notes. But evidently, his students were given permission to do so, and maybe not all of them could. Remember, writing was an elevated skill. And here he's including the next level of monk, the Sakragamin, right? So, there can be, with these people, no such thing as not writing down, not receiving, not upholding, and expounding the teachings to others. They explicitly practice with the aim of becoming expert enough, knowledgeable enough, memorized, and knowing enough of the teachings that to disseminate those teachings, they want them to be accurate, thus writing it down to make sure they don't flower it up with their own illusions, and propagate it, share it with as many as possible. With them, there could never be anything such as saying that Shakyamuni Buddha allows them to keep servants in what is impure. So they really look down on servitude in the form of slaves, right? They were themselves servitude, but servitude at a much higher level, right? Wanting to excel and perfect each word in the transmission of the teachings to others. This refers to the people of the second category. They have not as yet attained the second and third places of the abode. They are called bodhisattvas of the first stage. Now, there's the first distinction of the common word of bodhisattva. There are different levels of bodhisattva. So really, the word bodhisattva really means someone knowledgeable enough to transmit trans to tran to perform the transmission correctly of what they have learned, until the lotus, which assumes that that bodhisattva, the lotus bodhisattva, is one knowledgeable in Buddha. That's a complete, holistic understanding of the meaning of the teachings, the whole goal, the entire goal, I should say. All right. They have already received Shakyamuni Buddha's prophecy that they will one day attain Buddhahood. So this is a reference right back to the Lotus Sutra, isn't it? 3, third stage, are those of the stage of the Anagamin. With them, there can never be such things as slandering wonderful Dharma, keeping servants, male or female, having impure things, or keeping the books of the non-Buddhist heretics, being hindered by foreign gifts, minor or illusions, or being bound up by various old inherent illusions, like reincarnation, saving for themselves the true sarira, or relics, of Shakyamuni Buddha, getting attacked by eternal or outside of time illnesses, or the 4 great poisonous serpents, greed, anger, ignorance, and arrogance, and insisting upon themselves, or insisting upon self, right, as identity. They talk about selflessness, but never talk about or cling to worldly things. They speak about and uphold Mahayana, but their body is never soiled by the 80,000 germs. They are forever removed from sensual appetite. And even in their dreams, they never ejaculate impure things. At the last moment of their life, they are never afraid. What does Anagamin mean? It means that this person never comes back. As already stated, no wrongs or illnesses ever catch hold of him. He goes, returns, and cycles around. He is called an arhat, or arahant. This is the person of the 3rd category. Interesting. See, the terms are offering gradations, if you will. They seem to be mixing within themselves, yeah? And then we get to the enlightened one, category 4. And I will save that, I think. Yeah, we'll save that for the next session. I hope this is making sense. Again, the comment section is open for you to have any comments or questions about what we're covering here. And also, I don't want you to be intimidated by, a public forum. If you have a question you don't feel sure about, tlksylvain@gmail, right? All right. I have to thank those of you on Patreon, my patrons there, and those of you who are donating monthly directly through PayPal. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Real tremendous support. Thank you, Bodhisattvas, for keeping this resource alive and growing. I appreciate it tremendously, and so does everyone who takes benefit in the website, these videos, the free podcasts, the bookstore, all of it. And some of you are supporting by purchasing from the bookstores, whether it's an ebook or a print book. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. And if you're not able to, if you don't have the financial fortune right now to do either of those things, like and subscribe. It's very powerful. And that also is a tremendous support. So Namo Myoho Renge-kyo. Thank you also. All bodhisattvas you are. Links are in the description as always. Take care of your health, savor your practice, and I will see you in the next one. All right? And once again, bye for now.